Hey guys, so I thought I'd put a little video together. First and foremost, our granddaughter was uplifted by Oranga Tamariki. Okay, but first and foremost, I want to say this: it's not defamation of character if what you're saying is the truth. Okay, yeah, our granddaughter's got has had medical needs since she's been born, and she had IUGR in the womb and came out with faltering growth, with that was in regards to poor oral intake. Okay, my daughter has always tried her best to be able to get her daughter fed very well. Okay, she's gone through a lot, our little granddaughter, and so has our daughter. Okay, she's always been on a nasogastric tube ever since June or July, I think it was, in 2019. Okay, the hospitals had their feeding plans. Unfortunately, these didn't work, okay, but as per usual, we couldn't get any medical professionals to listen to the fact that that wasn't working, okay, and unfortunately, baby was vomiting up every feed, okay, and no matter how much we tried to put it to them that, okay, they needed to look at what they were feeding her, okay, we just couldn't get them to understand that the feeding regimes they had her on just would not work, okay. This went on from at least June, July through till November. Okay, we didn't know it, but the hospital had put a report of concern into the to Oranga Tamariki, okay, the Lower Hutt Hospital. Okay, at the time we had a Dr. Margaret Andre. Okay, we tried to get as much done for our granddaughter as possible. So did my daughter. But it's very hard to be able to deal with anything like that when you've got medical professionals, and then you've got Oranga Tamariki, and then you've got other professionals involved that, as far as they're concerned, they are right. Okay, no matter what you do as a whānau, it is wrong. Okay, at one stage there, my daughter called the dietitian to be able to, back in September, October last year, to be able to let her know that she was still throwing up, okay, and we're not talking just throwing up. This child, our granddaughter, was power chucking full length of a bath, okay, and yet these medical professionals just would not listen at all. Okay, we tried to get them to realise that, okay, the feeds they were giving her, okay, were causing some sort of a problem in her stomach, and that every time she had it, she would just vomit. And at that time, she was weighing somewhere between, I think it was 8.1 and 8.3 kilos for coming up to a near 2-year-old. Okay, my daughter rang the dietitian, let her know what was going on. The dietitian's answer to it at the time, who was Tanya Don, her answer to it was she'd have to get back to my daughter in the next week or so because she didn't know what to do because nothing was working. Okay, now bearing that in mind, I said to my daughter after she finished the phone call, would she like me to try and mix something up that could go through the tube in the meantime to be able to feed baby? And she said yes please. So we did that. The thing that came of that was from the time of mixing up a homemade shake and making sure it was as safe as possible to go through her tube, her nasogastric tube. She, like, on the nasogastric tube feeds that the hospital had given her, okay, she'd never gained any weight, wasn't getting anywhere. Poor little thing was having such a hard time. But from the 4th of November, when my daughter made that phone call and we started making the homemade shake, okay, we all of a sudden started to see results. Okay, the unfortunate side was that the medical professionals weren't willing to let that happen, simply because, as far as they were concerned, it was too much of a risk us putting our homemade shake through the tube. Okay, this went on through into the end of November and into December, when we finally ended up getting the medical team changed because we just said, yeah, this is not working. Okay, and if it's not working, someone else needs to have a look at her. So they did that and brought in Dr. Philip Ledbetter, okay, at Lower Hutt Hospital. What happened from there was Dr. Ledbetter said, okay, it was all right for us to be able to use that homemade shake, okay, until such time as he could look at the ingredients that were in it and see if anything else was missing from it. Okay, bearing in mind that at this stage, Oranga Tamariki had just become involved. Okay, had just gone to court in December. At the time the doctor had taken over. In fact, it was only about a day before that the doctor had taken over when Oranga Tamariki took it to court. Okay, we had to go down and meet them at the office and talk to them in regards to what was going to happen. We informed them that the new medical team was on board with us at that time and was happy to continue the homemade shake until such time as they could work out did it require anything that was missing in it. They took it to court the next day, I think it was the 17th of December, and did not manage to get the orders they were seeking, which was custody and guardianship, based on the fact that at the time the judge wanted to be able to look at the case and see where the doctors would next go. Okay. From there it moved on to being, we had to go to a family group conference on the 19th of February this year. But before that, we got our granddaughter weighed at Wedderburn Scales in Petone, because they are the same people who calibrate the Lower Hutt and Wellington Hospital scales. Now, the reason we did this is because we've always said to the community nurse, something's not right, because we were weighing her on our home scales, and she was weighing more than on the community nurse's scales. So we figured the easiest way to determine what was actually going on with the measurements was to we took her to the local doctors, put her on the digital scales there. They gave us a printout. Okay, in the morning she had been weighed by the community nurse at 9.5 kilos. Later that morning, we went to the doctors, like I said, okay, and she weighed in at 10.1. Okay, these are all naked weights, of course. Went down to another local medical centre and weighed her there, same thing, 10.1. So we thought, I rang Wedderburn Scales and asked them, could we bring her down there to get a true and accurate reading, because they would be able to calibrate, make sure the scales were calibrated. So we took her down there because they agreed, and when we got down there, the man we dealt with, he took the scales out the back, and it was quite a while, and he came back and he told us, okay, the reason I was quite a while is because I've calibrated these scales to make sure on a 20 kg and a 40 kg weight to make sure we've got them exactly right. Okay, he got our granddaughter to stand on the scales, and on the day that the community nurse had weighed her at 9.5 kilos, she weighed 10.7 kilos on their scales. He did say that you'd need to take into account that there'd be maybe 300 to 400 grams in her clothing. So even with that in mind, the hospital scales at that stage were out by at least 800 grams. Now, I put this to the hospital, how can you be treating that child correctly if you don't even have the correct weight? They said, well, they go by their scales, and that was what the weight was. So I put it to them, well, the company that we got her weighed at, that says she's 10.7 kilos, calibrates the two DHB boards and Wellington scales. So I doubt very much they would be wrong. So moving on from there, we got to a family group conference on the 19th of February. So we brought this up at the family group conference. Okay, now at the family group conference, okay, we hadn't actually been to one in a while, okay, and quite a while, over 30 years, okay, and we were told by the care and protection coordinator, okay, that ran it, that no matter what, baby would stay with mum at that stage. Okay, so that was fine. Okay, they said that everybody in the room needed to agree that there was a care and protection issue. The one thing I have learnt from that is never agree there is a care and protection issue, because the minute you do, you're basically giving them the keys to take you to court and get your child. Okay, so basically what happened in that FGC was we didn't agree that there was a care and protection issue. So my daughter's lawyer at the time, Amy Gilbranson from Wellington, she said to them that she wanted a word alone with our whānau. Okay, what ended up happening was Amy put it to us this way. Okay, if you do not agree there's a care and protection issue, they will take her today, take the grandchild today. Okay, now after having heard that she was going to go home with mum, naturally we thought to ourselves, well, the last thing we want is for her to be separated from her mother. So because of that, we agreed to the care and protection issue. Okay, like I said, worst mistake our whānau ever made, simply because of the fact that it opened the door to them to take it into courts. Okay, from there, okay, it was agreed that we would follow the medical plans. Very hard thing to do when you know that your child or your grandchild, okay, is going downhill and declining daily on the medical plans. Okay, we literally went from there, and then we had to go back and get a new feeding plan the 28th of February. Okay, now on the 28th of February, the dietitian had changed to Jenna Shriver's. Unfortunately, in my view, she doesn't know how to calculate things properly, because she gave our granddaughter, a feeding plan that had her on roughly 14 grams of iron. Okay, now we're talking only around a 28-month-old at this stage. Okay, and she's been given enough for a 14-year-old per day. Okay, now we started her on she started her on Peptamen Junior. Okay, unfortunately, with the amount of iron that was in that and the extra iron that she wanted to add into her diet, as well as the multivitamin that had extra iron in it as well, and it is a known fact within the females of our family that they cannot have too much iron. My daughter, when she was pregnant with her, they gave her an iron infusion, and my daughter only agreed to it because they said it was what baby needed, and within less than 24 hours they were performing an emergency C-section. Okay, we tried to tell the hospital at that stage, no, that's no good for her to have that. Okay, it will have devastating effects, and 24 hours later we're having her taken in for an emergency C-section because baby is trying to climb out through her chest, and you could actually see under her chest the baby pushing upwards. That's why we rushed her to the hospital, and like I say, within 24 hours the doctor said no, we need to do an emergency C-section. Okay, so moving back to after the FGC and the Peptamen Junior, okay, unfortunately this feeding plan gave baby what they call fecal impaction. Okay, now fecal impaction is very, very bad diarrhea. Okay, we gave her suppositories through the bottom and laxatives through the top. Okay, based on the fact that we weren't allowed to do anything ourselves, we had to follow the medical advice from the February 19th family group conference. Now, based on that, we rang the social worker. We explained to her what was happening on that same night that she had started on the Peptamen Junior, and I myself pretty much begged the social worker to stop enforcing what the doctor was having as a feeding plan, because our granddaughter was screaming so badly and throwing herself around. All I can say is it reminded me of the girl on the bed in the Exorcist movie, yeah, and the vomiting. She was that bad. Okay, now the social worker Emily Lawrence said no, you must follow the medical plan for feeding. Okay, we felt we were trapped and we couldn't do anything in regards to it, otherwise my daughter would have it taken off her because it would be a breach of the FGC plan. Okay, so I said to my daughter, ring the hospital, Lower Hutt Hospital, and tell them that you need her to be admitted as soon as possible, okay, because she has very bad diarrhea, she's got fecal impaction. She did that. The hospital said, you'll have to wait till Tuesday. Bear in mind, this is Friday night, Saturday morning, and they want the child to wait until Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Okay, so we tried as best as we could to keep her comfortable over the weekend. We finally got to the hospital. We said to them we would take her to A&E. They said they would not admit her. The paediatric department said they would not admit her if we bring her down to the A&E. So therefore, our whānau was stuck. What do you do? Okay, you're trying to get some help for the child, and from the people that have caused it, and no help. So all we could do was wait till the Tuesday and keep her as comfortable as possible. We tried to do as best as possible. We got to Tuesday, 9 a.m. We went into the appointment. The doctors, nurses, and everyone else involved in the hospital were more interested in talking about what was going on than treating her. Okay, we had both sides of the whānau there because my daughter and her ex-partner are no longer together, and we haven't been since well before the child was born. Okay, now in the meeting, what ended up happening was, like I said, they just wanted to talk. And my daughter said to them, look, if I take her up to the children's ward now, can they admit her and get her sorted out? They said yes, that was possible. So my daughter just disappeared, ran to the child's ward, okay, and went to try and get her daughter admitted in, like they said. Now, we went up there as well, but I finished off at the meeting, went up there as well, and was quite disgusted in the fact that my daughter and my granddaughter, who's screaming in pain, screaming through the children's ward, lower heart, okay, is being made to wait 2 hours while these professionals think about what they're going to do with in regards to what's happening with her. My daughter and my partner went down to the nurses station several times and requested, please, somebody come and help her. Listen, she's screaming down there. Okay, she was in very, very bad pain because she just couldn't pass a bowel motion. Okay, and so 2 hours went by. Then they finally decided that they would come and have a MDT meeting with us. Not treat the child, have an MDT meeting. Okay, we turned around and said to them, we were not prepared to have that meeting until they treated our granddaughter. Okay, we finally managed to get her into a ward room, okay, and get some treatment done to give her some pain relief, okay, and then they talked to us about it, and we just said to them straight out, this is pretty disgusting because of the fact that you haven't you let that child suffer, okay, and okay, you had every option to treat her first, and you let her suffer, okay. So from there we move forward to the doctors trying to figure out how to clear the fecal impaction. Okay, I said to the doctors, okay, I got asked, why didn't you try and do something to help her? Okay, we were stuck with the fact that the Oranga Tamariki was enforcing the plan, okay, and we weren't allowed to do anything, okay, and we didn't want to risk breaching that plan just for her to be taken off her, which in the end happened anyway. But going from there, she was in the hospital 2 days, and Dr. Ledbetter and his staff could not figure out how to clear her fecal impaction. Okay, that was on the 3rd, from the 3rd to the 5th. I asked him on the 5th of March 2020, could he please take a suggestion so my granddaughter wouldn't be in pain? So he finally said, okay, what's your suggestion? I asked him, could you please put her on indolite, which is like gastrolite, a solution, for 24 hours and her bowels will start moving. Okay, he finally agreed to do that. Okay, and then the next morning we went home. My daughter stayed at the hospital with her daughter. The next morning my daughter sends me a pic on Messenger, okay, showing that our granddaughter, it had worked, and our granddaughter had completely filled 10 nappies in 2 hours. Okay, and I'm not talking little fills. I'm talking the whole thing filled with poo. Okay, all running, everything like that, which you'd naturally expect if you're running an indolite or gastrolite through a child to be able to clear it. But this is my point. Okay, doctors don't fully know the child. Okay, the whānau knows the child, but they're not willing to accept whānau input because we've got a medical certificate. We know everything. Okay, the unfortunate part is they don't know everything. Okay, I'm not a medical professional. I don't claim to be. Okay, but like I keep telling the doctors, you do not need to have anything else but common sense to realize what's going on with her. Okay, now our granddaughter has had to go through throwing up, vomiting every feed for well over 15 to 18 months. Okay, now the reason my daughter lost custody of her is because she was transferred from Lower Hutt Hospital to Wellington Hospital on the 20th of March this year. Now the reason being, okay, the doctors, Dr. Ledbetter couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. Dr. Margaret Andre had no idea before him. Okay, they turned around and we asked the lady from that was in the DHB to have a meeting with us on the 20th of April. They wanted to send her to Starship Hospital to have a Nissan fundification operation, which is where they take the top of the stomach of the child okay, and they wrap it around itself so the child won't throw up, okay. She never needed that operation, okay. She just needed to be on the right diet, because if she needed that operation, when she was on the homemade shake that I put together for her, thriving on it, okay, no throwing up at all. Okay, but they're not willing to listen to that because of the fact that, okay, that's more of a natural remedy and it doesn't meet their Western ideology medicine needs. So unless it's Western ideology medicine, they don't want to hear about it. Okay, now that's wrong because, okay, the childs have to go through all of this suffering because these medical professionals won't listen. Okay, like I've said before, I'm not a medical professional, okay, and I'm not claiming to say I know what's best for her, okay. All I can say is we know what has worked for her, okay, and it's not been any of the what's it called, Pediasure, Nutrini, okay. I contacted Nutricia, which is the milk powder makers. I spoke to the nutrition there, okay, and was talking to her about the different milk powders. The doctor, okay, she got transferred on the 20th of March to Wellington because we asked for a third set of eyes to have a look at her. Okay, the unfortunate part about that is, okay, she went under the care of a Dr. Ross Wilson in Wellington. Okay, now within 10 days, he came to my daughter with an agenda. Okay, he wanted to have a meeting with the whānau, which fair enough. Okay, now at that stage, my granddaughter had been going for 4 or 5 weeks. Okay, where her weight was just declining and declining and declining. As I said, she was 10.7 kilos, okay, at Kiwibank scales on the 10th of February. Okay, now bear in mind she was admitted to Lower Hutt Hospital in regards to the fecal impaction on the 3rd of March, so only roughly 2 weeks later. Okay, now because of having to follow the medical plans, okay, our granddaughter dropped in weight 1.2 kilos in less than 2 weeks. Okay. And I'm trying to explain this to them that, you know, it's not right. She shouldn't have dropped that much. Okay. They're more focused on what my daughter has done wrong. Okay. And she hasn't done anything wrong. How can you do anything wrong when you follow their medical plans and it doesn't work? But because it didn't work, you're the one at fault, not them. Okay. More about that later. Okay. So we got her into the Wellington Hospital. Dr. Ross Wilson, okay, like I said, he had an agenda. On that agenda, it said that if we cannot agree as a whānau with the treatment he is going to provide for her, okay, that he cannot offer her any care, okay. So when we had the meeting, I think it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, okay, this was put forward to us. So I asked him a question, okay, and the question was this: are you going to carry on with the same feeding regime, same feeding plan that Lower Hutt has had in place for the last 4 to 5 weeks? His answer, yes. So you're asking us to agree to a plan that is making our granddaughter decline, decline, decline. Okay. Now, he said yes to that. Now, me and my daughter had discussed about it before, okay, and if this was the case, what did she think was the best thing to do for her child? Now, anybody out there that knows the Care of Children Act, okay, knows that the first thing that comes to mind, okay, is you must do what is in the best interest of your child. Okay, now my daughter said that she wanted to discharge her daughter based on the fact that she didn't want to watch her daughter go downhill when this doctor is saying to us that he can help the child only if we agree, but we're looking at it from the point of view, so how are you helping her if you're going to leave her on the same feeding regime that hasn't worked for 5 weeks? Okay. So what ended up happening was my daughter made the decision to discharge her daughter, okay, and she wanted us to come and pick her up and bring her home. So that is what we did. Now, based on the discharge, this is why Oranga Tamariki went to them for orders, okay, and applied for a Section 39 place of safety warrant. Okay. Now, when the police came that night, and bear in mind the uplift happened 12:18 a.m. on the 31st of March. Okay, they turned up here with police at 12:20 in the morning, woke the child from her sleep. Okay, once it had all been over and done with, and they had to go back into the Wellington Hospital, and I'd had a chance to read the documentation. Okay, I realised that it was a place of safety warrant. Okay, on it, nobody had done what it said, which is they're supposed to come and assess the child and see if the child is in any danger. Now, if someone can tell me that the child is in danger when she's asleep, okay, I find that very hard to believe. Okay, now she was taken back in. Okay, bear in mind this is what 4 or 5 days after COVID-4 lockdown. Okay, she got taken back into A&E. Okay, where they put her through the COVID testing station. Okay, then was made to wait for 2 to 3 hours in A&E to go back into the children's ward. Okay, they went in there, finally got into the children's ward. Okay, and they put her back on the feeding regime. Once again, back to throwing up all the time. Okay, no matter what we tried to say to them, they weren't going to hear it. Okay, Oranga Tamariki, especially Emily Lawrence, the social worker, okay, is of the view that she knows right. She knows better than anyone. Okay, that's how we have found it with our dealings with her. Okay, since then, okay, we've also been to a whānau hui. Okay, my daughter did apply for a discharge of the custody from them, but we had an advocate, and he said it was better to have discussions with Oranga Tamariki. So we've had a hui whānau and a whānau hui since that time. Okay, my opinion of both of them is this. Okay, if you are unlucky enough to get into an FGC, don't ever go for a whānau hui or a hui whānau. Okay, because even though you're discussing everything in there, no decisions can be made from either of those two, only from an FGC. Okay. Now, going back to the hospital time that she was in there, my daughter was in there from the 30th of March through to the 27th of April. Okay, that was when my daughter was made to leave the hospital. Bearing in mind that since the time that Oranga Tamariki got the custody, the medical teams, okay, claimed, okay, that they know what's wrong with this child. Okay, at Wellington. Okay, now what ended up happening was that from the time they got the custody, okay, the hospital, even though my daughter was there, administered all of the feeds. Okay, my daughter had a 24/7 watch at both Lower Hutt and Wellington hospitals. Okay, now she was upset when she first had to go back in, so pretty angry. And they took that as being, okay, do we still want her on the ward, or should we just send her home? So, okay, so then that way, who was baby going to have for emotional support? Okay, so I said to my daughter, okay, just keep it calm, because the last thing last thing baby needs, okay, is her mother gone. Okay, unfortunately, we didn't know this, but Oranga Tamariki had been colluding with the paternal grandmother since before October 2019, before all of this started happening. Okay, now what I'm going to say next is, okay, please people, if you're fighting Oranga Tamariki, always, first thing, under the Official Information Act, get your file. Okay, any organisation that you are dealing with in regards to Oranga Tamariki, get your file. If you're dealing with the hospital, get your file. Okay, I think the biggest problem we have out there as whānau is we don't know our rights. Okay, please look up the Oranga Tamariki Act 1989, I think it is. Okay, Care of Children Act 2004, Family Court Rules 2002. Get yourself versed in those. Okay, because those are the 3 acts you're going to need to be able to know what's going on in the family court system. Okay, now, as I was saying, my daughter ended up getting, on the 27th of April, getting made to leave her daughter. Okay, one of the hardest things a mother or father can go through. Okay, especially when you did no wrong. Okay, now from there onwards, okay, the paternal grandmother went into the hospital on the same day. Okay, now, like I said, Oranga Tamariki had been colluding with them since October 2019. How do I know this? It's in the Oranga Tamariki files. Okay, this is why I'm saying get your files. Okay, there's a lot of information in there, and if you pick it apart, you will find what you need. Okay, yes, they redact a lot of information, but it's not hard between your court documentation and Oranga Tamariki file, and if you're involved with a hospital file, whoever's file. Okay, you can work out, if you look at things properly, where things have gone, even though it's redacted. Okay, so anyway, the other grandmother went into the hospital. Okay, and that's who the caregiver is now. Okay, Now, our granddaughter has been under her care for, what are we now, 7 months. Okay. Now, the most important part that we've noted down is the fact of this. My daughter's always been blamed for the fact of you didn't administer the feeds properly, you didn't do this, you didn't do that. Honestly, she did everything she was supposed to do. Okay. I'm not the type of grandfather that's going to let her not do that kind of thing. It needed to be done properly. Okay. So what has been proven in the end is this. We ended up having a meeting with a Professor Stringer. Okay, and he was the one who was supposed to do the Nissan fundification. Now, the pediatrician, Dr. Ross Wilson, had not told Professor Stringer that the child had eaten between November and February orally. So Professor Stringer was of the opinion that she needed this operation because she couldn't hold milk formula down. Okay. Now, when he came to the meeting and he started talking to me, okay, bear in mind that the social worker was at this meeting. Okay, now Dr. Ross Wilson, he seems to think he knows the Oranga Tamariki Act very well. Okay, unfortunately he doesn't. Okay, and he was trying to tell our whānau that he did not need to talk to my daughter in regards to guardianship decisions, because even though she's still got the guardianship. Okay, so I said to him that was incorrect, and he said to me, okay, well then you prove me wrong. I'll get back to that one later. Now, at that meeting, Professor Stringer and I talked. And we were talking, and he was quite surprised to hear that my granddaughter had eaten orally between November 2019 and February 2020. When he did speak to Dr. Wilson about this, that's when Dr. Wilson decided to tell the truth. He said, yes, she had. So he was no longer prepared to do that in the sand fundification. Okay, but he did want to do the endoscopy to make sure nothing else was wrong. Okay, my daughter and her ex-partner and OT, who's the additional guardian, okay, all signed the documentation that was done. It was done 4 days later. Okay, when we got the paperwork back for it, everything clear. Doesn't need an SM fundification. Okay, doesn't have the gastroesophagus reflux, whatever it's called, basically acid reflux. Okay, it doesn't have that. Okay, had minor inflammation in the throat from all the throwing up she'd done over it, which you'd expect that from 15 to 18 months of throwing up. Okay, so from that meeting, I put forward to Professor Stringer, okay, that I would like them to try her on a soy diet, because our homemade mixture of the blended shake was made from soy, okay, and so the minute they put her on soy, which was 3 days later, okay, they put her on soy, within 3 days, no vomiting, okay, no vomiting at all, okay, the child starts to slowly put on weight. Okay, but bearing in mind, she still needs to eat orally. Okay, because she, as I said to them at the meeting, this child hasn't had anything past her lips 15 months. So how do you expect her to start eating when she doesn't know taste? Okay, it's going up through the tube, down through her nose. Okay, she doesn't know taste anymore. Okay, and it's obvious she doesn't know taste because of the fact that at that stage, because okay, she would happily drink water, no taste. Okay, so no taste in the water really. So, but she would happily go through 200-300 mils of it. Okay, I tried to tell the doctors from Lower Hutt and Wellington, okay, because they had her on 1,000 mils a day, and I said to them, okay, you will never get her to eat because she's smaller than the average child was when she was born. Okay, I'd estimate going by feeding her at home on the shake, her stomach can take a maximum per feed of around 170 to 190 mil, okay, per feed, 5 times a day. I ended up having her on 200 mils 5 times a day, okay, based on the fact that they didn't want her being fed orally. So I did what I could for my granddaughter, okay, and she was thriving, literally thriving. She was up and about, out of the 13 hours she was up, she maybe had a 2-hour sleep, but she was on the go, loving life. Okay, our granddaughter went from that to a poor struggling little girl sitting in a hospital cot in a corner, just sad and moping. Okay, when they changed her diet at Lower Hutt, they did it far too rapidly. Okay, and they took her off our shake and put her straight onto their onto their feeding regime. Okay, straight away borderline hyperglycemic. Okay, and I said to them, okay, she won't handle that. Okay, you need to wean her off it. No, not willing to do that. Okay, we have the backing of OT. We'll do what we want to do. Okay, never mind the fact that that child's suffering will do what we want to do. Okay, so as you can imagine, this journey has changed me in a lot of ways. Okay, normally talking about something like this, you'd hear me yelling and screaming. But I've had to learn that that doesn't get us anywhere, and we need to be able to help our granddaughter. Getting back to the meeting, okay, we had that meeting. I finally got it changed to soy. We finally seen the difference. Okay, 6 weeks, no vomiting at all. Small weight gains, but I said to them that was to be expected because, okay, she's not eating much orally. Okay, so she's not going to get the right amount to gain the extra weight. Okay, and as I said to them, the way it needs to be done is she needs to be fed orally first, and then topped up by tube. Okay. Now, as I said to them, okay, you need to work out what the capacity of the stomach is now to be able to feed her properly, because that's what we ended up having to do. And in my view, we had it going pretty well. Not a medical professional, but we had her gaining weight. In 3 months, she put on 2.4 kilos. Okay, each time the hospital's done it, 200 grams. 6 months, 200 grams. Okay, this latest one, I'll give them a bit more ups on there. Okay, it's been 9 months, 500 grams. But not 2.4 kilos. Okay, going from the July the 6th meeting, okay, we ended up having to have another meeting with Dr. Stephen Mowat at Wellington Hospital. He's a paediatric surgeon, I think it is, or paediatric consultant from Starship Hospital in Auckland. Bear in mind, okay, July 2011, I think it was, we had a video conference with him. Now, what I'm about to say, I suggested to this doctor in July 2019, 1 year before this meeting, 1 year. Okay. Now, I suggested this. Bear in mind that when they uplifted her, it was Dr. Wilson put in an email to Emily Lawrence, the social worker. Myself and my daughter should not be making medical decisions for that child. Okay. Now that's back in March. Okay, we're now at July the 24th, and Dr. Mowat is asking me, because you had it working, what would you do? Okay, so I said to him, the same thing I told you a year ago when you wouldn't listen. Okay, what I told you was I would drop her feeds down to around 500 mils, okay, and that'll allow her to be able to get hungry and then work from there. As she's eating more, decrease down by the amount of grams that she is eating, the volume in mils. Because that's all I was doing. Okay, I was trying to use common sense to get my granddaughter better when I had her on the shake. Okay, now he agreed to this, and he said, but it has to happen in hospital. My answer to that was, I agree with you there, because neither the paternal grandmother nor Dr. Wilson is capable of doing that. So it needs to be in hospital. Okay, I understand Dr. Wilson's going to be the one looking after her as long as you have, but she's not going to be, my granddaughter is not going to get the improvement you want. It will happen slowly, but it won't get it the way you want it. Now, bearing in mind, I said 500 mils of feed per feed 5 times a day. Sorry, 500 mils of feed per day. Okay, and Dr. Wilson's answer was, there's no way I would consider lowering it down that low. However, only a few weeks later, it's Dr. Wilson that lowers it down to 460. Then a few weeks later, 365. Now the new and in my opinion, they didn't wait long enough between each drop to allow her to start eating more to gain more. Okay. Now, over the whole time up till now, our granddaughter, from March, from March the 30th till now, okay, has only had a gain of 900 grams. 9 months, 900 grams. 100 grams a month, okay, divided by 30, 3 grams a day. Yet my daughter, when she had the custody of her, expected by the medical teams to have her gaining minimum 20 to 30 grams a day. Okay, so moving on from there, okay, we've got, my granddaughter is slowly increasing in weight, okay, but when you have a caregiver that admits to hitting her, since she's had her at least 6 times, maybe more, okay, I have told the latest doctor, Dr. Nick Reed, that has become involved again at Lower Hutt, because Dr. Wilson has transferred her back to Lower Hutt My opinion, simply because he doesn't know what's wrong with her. None of their team knows what's wrong with her. We went to a senior meeting, I think it was the 29th of September, okay, and I put the question to them, what is my granddaughter diagnosed with? Okay, we're going 18 months later at this stage. We don't know. There's multiple things it could be. So if you don't know what's wrong with the child, how do you know how to treat them? You've got no diagnosis. Seems illogical to me. So, I mean, if you're going to try and treat a child, you need to know what's wrong. Anybody, you're going to try and treat them, don't you need to know what you've diagnosed them with? Okay. Now, a lot of the senior staff at the hospitals have turned around and said, well, you don't actually, you might not never get a diagnosis as to what the different things. Okay, but what happens if one of those things becomes fatal? Who takes responsibility? Why does our granddaughter have to lose out because nobody wants to listen? Okay, and the worst ones in this scenario is Oranga Tamariki, because at the end of the day, okay, they don't have to make decisions they're making. They could work with whānau. They could implement 7AA, which is what they're supposed to do. But you can't do that when you don't even note down on the file. This is the social worker. My daughter had to call her again. Okay, now she's known of the iwi since June. October records, no affiliation under iwi. Okay, there's no affiliation under there. So you're not going to implement 7AA when you're not purposely not putting it on the file. Okay, so we finally ended up getting a a letter from the iwi to confirm the iwi and hapu. We put that in, demanded it be updated. Okay, my daughter rang up to check again, nothing there. So the lady on the phone said she'll enter the information there and then. Okay, we've got social workers out there that are purposely holding back information so they don't have to turn around and partnership with iwis. Now, this is what everything's going on in the media about now. Why? Okay, why are they not doing it? Why? Because it means they keep control. The Crown keeps control. Okay. Something else I'm going to have a talk about, okay, is, okay, be very careful when it comes to social workers and the information they supply you. Okay, because with this social worker, Emily Lawrence, we have proof that she's been redacting information. Okay, what I mean by redacting, okay, she's been purposely taking information out of the file, okay, and not forwarding it to us, like the community news updates my daughter gets, okay. She would never have known her daughter was being smacked and the amount of times if we didn't get that community news update. Oranga Tamariki came to, emailed her on the 1st of October, I think it was, 1st of October, okay, 4 days after the report of concern, okay. Now, bear in mind that this caregiver, okay, had provisional approval during COVID. In other words, she wasn't fully assessed, okay. Still to this day, Oranga Tamariki refused to give the outcome of the caregiver assessment, okay. Now, okay, as far as I've been aware of reading on the records, this caregiver has had 6 reports of concerns. So if she's had reports of concerns, what's she doing being able to look after our grandchild? Okay, myself and my partner applied to be caregivers, turned down, straight away turned down. Okay, didn't even get to the caregiver assessment part of it. The site manager, Dean Weebley at Lower Hutt, okay, he tries to make sure that he cuts everything off. They've even gone to the point where if my daughter or myself call the National Call Centre, okay, everything's to be referred straight back to them. So it's hidden. What else can it be? So it's hidden. Okay. Now the other thing is, okay, when it comes to the medical side of things, okay, none of these doctors are actually doing what is in the best interest of the child, okay, or as they call it, best practice, okay, because best practice would be to do what's best for the child, and not just because of the fact that you got Oranga Tamariki backing you, do whatever you want, okay. Now, our granddaughter, okay, is now for the last update we had was 10.3 kilos. So since she left the hospital in May the 3rd, which is now what, 7 months ago? Yeah, 7 months ago. Okay, our granddaughter was 9.5 when she left. Okay, yes, she's put on 800 grams. Okay, but not because the hospital has done anything. okay, over the whole time, the only 3 positives she's had in the feeding line is us, number one, when we implemented our homemade shake, because the dietitian didn't know what to do, and that was back in November 2019. Okay, second positive, me turning around and saying to Professor Stringer, could we please put her on soy? She wasn't throwing up on that. Okay, he was quite happy to do that. Okay, he actually wanted to know why couldn't our whānau take her home and get and feed her what we were feeding her. In his words, if the shake was working, you should have kept going. Well, you'd need to ask the social worker that, because she was sitting in the room. Professor Stringer did ask the social worker. She ignored him. Okay. Now, bear in mind, this is the lady that wanted him to be present at the meeting, but didn't want to answer him because things weren't going her way. Okay. And also this, okay, Dr. Wilson, on the 8th of April, 9 days after the uplift, I think it was, somewhere between that, okay, he actually got a hold of the social worker, and he asked, what are we supposed to do, okay, if I can't prove that this child's condition can be fixed medically? Okay. 20th of July, he sends correspondence to the Emily Lawrence, okay, stating it's a non-organic medical condition and that none of her carers are responsible for it. Okay, so now we've got a child that's been uplifted, okay, and a doctor saying, I can't find the reason. Okay, so theoretically, going by that, okay, she was uplifted on his email. He was the one who said that, we shouldn't be making medical decisions. Okay, so it was his email, okay, that was put into the courts. Okay, bearing in mind though that the everything that went into the courts hasn't even been to a hearing, hasn't been seen by a judge. Okay, now I want people to be aware out there that, okay, under the Oranga Tamariki Act, Section 71 states that for a Section 78 without notice uplift, they do not require proof. No evidence is required to pick up your child. All they have to do, put it into the e-duty system, okay, which is like judges approving it from home, okay, on a computer system, okay. They don't actually have to hear the evidence until such time as the hearing. So your child got uplifted, like our granddaughter did, based on the fact that no evidence was heard. Okay. Now these matters are supposed to come before the court within 28 days, but because of COVID, it never did. Okay, and we're now coming up 9 months later. Okay, this child is staying with a woman who admits abusing her. We went to New Zealand police to have her charged. Okay. No, they won't do it. Okay, I said to them, look, under section 59/2, okay, under the 1961 Crimes Act, you are not allowed to use force for the purpose of correction. Now, this woman's admitted, okay, she's slapping her on the hand because she pushed her cereal bowl off the table. Okay, but she admitted this to the community nurse who put the report of concern in. Okay, Oranga Tamariki told my daughter one time. A few days later, we get the medical records. We find out 3 times. There's 3 times that child has been hit. Okay, a little bit later on, and we find out through the records, it's happening occasionally. Now, when the police officer Kirk Fraser went there from the child protection team to see the caregiver, she admitted she'd done it 6 times. So we've got a woman that has no problem hitting our grandchild, okay, and the father lives in the same house, yet he does nothing. He claims he doesn't know his mother's hitting the child. Now, he also claims, okay, he backs his mother to keep the child in her care, okay, and he also backs Oranga Tamariki 100%. But if they can't keep the custody because my daughter's going for a discharge of the custody and guardianship, then he would like to be considered for that custody. Now, I don't know about you, but any man that can't step up in the first place and take his child on if something has gone wrong is no man. Okay, you're still a boy growing up. Okay, no matter what. Okay, if anything happened with my kids when I was younger, okay, I'd have done anything for them. If it meant I had to get out of the house, I would have done that so they could stay there. We've never had to go through anything like that, though. But, I mean, that's what I'm saying. If it came down to that with my children, that's what I would have done. I would have left so they could stay there. It's, you know, the child's done nothing wrong. The child's been torn away from her mother, okay? And, you know, Oranga Tamariki, you have the cheek to turn around and say, when they offer the contact, okay, please, you're not allowed to show any emotional side. Okay, get real. What parent is not going to be showing an emotional side when you just tore their child away from them? Okay, so where we're at now is we have New Zealand police refusing to lay charges. Okay, the child and the grandmother's admitted to it. But here's the thing, okay, and this shocks me. Okay, when we went and had a meeting with the iwi liaison with the police officer, okay, he says these words: things are dealt with differently when you're dealing with OT. So I said, hold on, what do you mean by that? Are you telling me that if OT weren't involved, that she'd be getting charged? He goes, things would be dealt with differently. So why is it that just because an OT government agency OT is involved, this woman's not being charged? If it was you or me out in the street there, we'd be getting charged with assault on the child. Okay. Now, even Oranga Tamariki have come back and said, okay, well, bear in mind, people, that we have the documentation to back all of this up. It's all in black and white. Okay. But they've come back and said, even after this child's been hit 6 times, at the admittance of the caregiver, they deem her placement to be safe. How can you deem a child to be safe? Number one, knowing that it got reported to you that she's been hitting, hiding the fact that it's happened more than once from her mother, okay, also trying to hide the fact that it's happened more than 3 times, like was stated. You know, this woman has actually come out and told the police officer, it's happened at least 6 times since I've had her. My belief, okay, and I went through the same thing as a child for 11 years, and I told the doctor this at Lower Heart. Okay, she's not eating because of the fact that she's being hit and abused. How do I know this? I went through this from the age of 5 to 16. Okay, so as I said to them, I know you don't feel like eating. You feel down. Okay, yeah, she's 3. She's just gone 3. A 3-year-old is going through this. Yet no agency will step in. Now, I'm going to put this out there. Calvin Davis, okay, we have sent you so many emails. We have CC'd you in on so many emails. No response. Children's Minister for Children, supposed to be going to make a difference. I would love to see where that difference is, okay? Because at the moment, okay, I'm not trying to say anything bad, okay? Yes, you're dealing with the reverse uplifts and everything like that, but here's the thing. It's more than, we need to deal with the newborns being uplifted, okay? Yes, we need to deal with the reverse uplifts, but what about all the kids that are sitting in there, the young tamariki that are sitting in there, okay, sitting in care, being abused, okay, and their parents haven't actually done anything wrong. You've just got a social worker that's decided, okay, I don't like your family. That's really basically what it comes down to, okay? I will go as far as to say that, okay, Oranga Tamariki are the type of organisation, okay, that go to people and talk about harm and abusiveness. Okay, the problem is it's Oranga Tamariki that caused the harm and the abusiveness. Okay, so you cannot turn around and fix up something you are saying that is happening in the family, in a whānau, when you are the ones doing it. You take these children and you cause them more abuse and harm than anything else. So that's where I'm going to leave it at the moment. Okay, I just want people to be aware of the fact of what goes on. Please read up on your rights. Okay, you do have rights as parents. Okay, do not ever sign anything with them. Okay, if you have your child with you, okay, and you want more advice, please feel free to PM. Okay, I will help you to give you the advice to be able to help you. Okay, keep your child. Okay, unfortunately for us, we found this out after our granddaughter went. Okay, but I want everybody to be aware out there that this sort of thing is going on. Okay. Now, the other thing I would like to say is this. Okay. We have been inquired with every single media agency out there. Okay. We've been to One News. Okay. We've contacted 3 News, RNZ. Okay. We've been to I've tried to contact Newsroom, many other media agencies. Okay. Why does it take for our children to have something bad happen to them, e.g., get assaulted, die, or commit suicide, okay, in the Oranga Tamariki care, before it's worth a story? That I just don't understand. You have the option and the power to be able to help people, but you don't. You're interested for 5 minutes and you're gone. Okay? Now, I look at it from this point of view. If you can't get anyone else to help you, what do you do? Here's the answer. This is why I'm doing this video. It's about time someone stood up and turned around and said to the media this. Okay? People are asking for help. Okay? The fact that Oranga Tamariki is involved in the courts shouldn't matter. Okay? Those are children's lives out there that you are leaving to be in harm. People are asking for help and they're not getting it. Okay? Now, you've got all of these different reports going on from the Children's Commission and everything like that, through the Waitangi Tribunal. How many reports does it take to tell you that 40 years of abuse by SIPs and Oranga Tamariki in their abusive manner doesn't work? Simply doesn't work. Okay? When it comes down to it, okay, this government, and Kelvin Davis, I'll quote you, okay, you are the one who has stated in Parliament, okay, even though it was in Māori, okay, I don't understand Māori, but someone had translated it to English, okay, that it was the last government's mess that you're cleaning up. Did you forget that the last government was still Labour? So you're cleaning up Tracy Martin's mess, another minister that does nothing at the time. How do I know this? Emailed her office, tried to make contact in the office, okay? The best thing that Oranga Tamariki do, and that they are very good at, hiding what they do, okay? They hide what they do behind the scenes, okay? Now, if your child's assaulted, okay, it should be externally investigated, not internally. How do you get that you are going to turn around and get a social worker from the same branch, just a social worker, to investigate what happened to our granddaughter and whether she should be with the caregiver? Not good enough. That should have been investigated at national level. Okay? We have too many tamariki and mukapuna out there that are getting harmed in their care. Okay? Why doesn't someone, I'll put it plain and simple, why doesn't someone have the balls to stand up and do something about it? Okay? At the end of the day, there is multiple of us grandparents out there that are, and parents that are trying to get the children back. Okay? There is plenty of parents out there that have done nothing wrong. Okay? Now, I see the stories all the time. Okay? They've done nothing wrong. Okay? Several pages of it on Facebook. But, okay, what they're putting across is they haven't done anything wrong. I know for sure my daughter did nothing wrong. Yet she's the criminal here. She's the one who all of a sudden needs psychiatric assessments and shit like this. Okay, psychological assessments. Now, okay, the S128 plan that they got in place, okay, was done without my daughter's knowledge, okay, without her knowledge or input, but she's expected to do it. Yet nobody is able to tell her, okay, we know that it's filed in the court, nobody can tell her whether it got approved. Even the judge, she had a judicial conference today, and she says the judge didn't tell her whether it was thing or not, whether it has been approved or not. So how many parents out there that are doing these S128 plans, okay, when they actually don't need to be? Okay, my advice to anyone out there, okay, if you're going to let them push you around, then you're going to get nowhere. They're going to have your kid for years. Okay, the most important thing you can do, like I said, at a family group conference, do not agree there is a care and protection issue. Okay. Because if you don't think there is in your mind and you agree to that, okay, you're just opening up the key to, giving them the key to the courts for you. Okay. So yeah, that's my bit of a rant for the day. But yeah, just be careful out there. And I can't get a media agency to listen. Put it that way. Okay, I can't get them to do anything. So this is the only way I can put it out there. Okay, they can't keep doing what they're doing. They know they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, but the social workers are like police. You give them a cap and they love the power they've got. Okay. Unfortunately, we have a new generation of social workers going through. Not that the old generation was any better. Okay. But okay, the reason, like I said, the reason I did this video is too many parents out there are taking what they are dishing out. Fight back, people. Fight back. Okay. If it comes down to it, okay, maybe there needs to be a protest or something at Parliament. But what I'm saying to you is, fight back. You have rights. Okay, don't let them tell you you don't have any rights. You've got to do this. You've got to do that. Okay, you don't got to do any of that. Okay, at the end of the day, that's just them putting through what they want you to do. Okay, now if you still have your child, here's my advice. Like I said, don't agree to go to an FTC. Simple as that. Okay, because the only thing that's going to happen if you don't go to an FTC, okay, is they're going to have to put into the court. Okay, then you're going to have time to respond anyway. Okay, and you'll be able to explain it to the judge why you feel that they shouldn't be involved. Okay, so it's really that simple. Okay, and if you want to look at it from the other point of view, okay, you can look up the Te Moana Nui Kiwa embassy on Google. Okay, they and contact the people there, because they can give you an ID card. Okay, and it puts you under completely the primary jurisdiction of New Zealand. Te Moana Nui Kiwa primary jurisdiction. If you still have your child, okay, that will work for you. You can get them off your back. Okay, but what I'm saying is, unfortunately, we didn't find out about that till after our granddaughter was gone. Okay, so yeah, just be aware that you're not alone out there. Okay, there are other people that are going through the same thing, and people, you do have rights. Don't back down to them. Okay, at the end of the day, you're going to hear all this rubbish from family court lawyers and that, and legal aid lawyers and that, saying, "Oh, you need to do this for them. Yeah, they want you to do this." Okay, but at the end of the day, if you know you did nothing wrong as a parent, why do you need to do it? Okay, if you have to, email them and put a subject line. Okay, put this as a subject line. Okay, you are putting them on notice. Okay, your arbitrary interference and involvement is not required. Okay, just put that in there and send it to them. That they're not, okay, that's your human rights. Okay, that they do not have to be involved in your life. Okay, that will work for you if you've got your child still with you. Okay, people, thank you for that. Sorry about the rant, but it had to be said, because how else is it going to get out there?